Okay, this video is going to be over chapters 14 and 15 because chapter 16 is going to require a little bit longer instruction than what this one will be. Chapter 14 is over parts and wholes, basically talking about dividing pieces and parts. If I have a whole sheet of paper, I can divide it in half by folding it and having half a sheet of paper. This is the whole, this is the half. Kids can understand very easy. Also, a whole cookie compared to a half of a cookie. And kids know, preschoolers know if they have the bigger half or if they have the smaller half. Yeah, that's one of the big things we have to make sure that when we're working with preschoolers is that they get equal parts. Because if not, they will let you know very quickly if the part is not equal. There's lots of different words that we use in this. Divide, whole, half, fractions. Now we're going to use all these words with the children know. A lot of times we're going to have, this is a whole sheet of paper, this is a half of a sheet of paper, or a whole cookie compared to half a cookie. Those are the different types of language we're going to be using with the kids at this level. Now we can say if we take a whole sheet of paper, we can divide it in half by tearing the paper into two separate pieces, therefore dividing it. Or if we cut this cookie in half, we can divide it by two. We don't get that deep usually. Now with some of your older 4 and 5s, you may actually have some children that actually are using those words in that language, and you would want to encourage that language by speaking those words with them and explain to them what that meant. And orange is really, really good to use because there's not just a half, there's lots of different little pieces in the orange. You have segments. So you not only can you take your orange and break it in half and have two parts, but you can also take those parts and divide those into quarters, thirds, and things like that. Now, we don't get that deep with the children, but we do want to start talking to the kids and using that language. Yes, you have a segment, or yes, you have a quarter, or that means you have 1 of 4. If you can divide the orange into 4 parts, that's 1 of 4 parts. And you're basically working with division with the children, and they just don't, they understand there's 1, 2, 3, 4 parts, but they may not understand what division means. But this is the precursor of math. It's pre-math skills that we're teaching the children at this stage. And there's lots of different ways. You can do this with all types of your cooking activities. You can do this in the block center with the blocks. The kids can divide half a container of eyeballs in the art center. There's lots of activities that you can do to teach this. And the kids, a lot of times you will see them doing this naturally. I'll have one and you'll have one, which also equals to one-to-one correspondence. And into counting later on in cardinality, which remember we talked about that a while ago, is the last number in a group that you've counted. That is all I have over chapter 14. In chapter 15, we're talking about language and concept formation. In this chapter, we're kind of bringing all of this together we've been talking about and bringing in problem solving. Problem solving is when we have something the kids have to try to figure out. And the best way for them to figure out is, well, what do you think we should do? Ask the what questions. What, how, why? Why should we do this? How should we do this? What are we going to do to solve this problem that we have? And this leads to logical reasoning, letting them think the process out in their mind using those process skills that we talked about in the class today that you have on that PowerPoint from the index training that is on Blackboard right now. We also want the children to understand what numbers are. We've talked about that already. Making a connection using language, putting all the process skills together for them to understand how to make these connections in the math and science world. Now, in the middle of all this, we also have a lot of concept words. We talked about one-to-one correspondence. We talked about numbers and counting and zero, which should be included in that. We've talked about logic and classifying, comparing, geometry, spatial sense is also a part of geometry, and parts and wholes. Now we're going to be getting into ordering. First, second, third, and fourth Kids know who's the first in line, and they know who's in the last in line. That's part of ordering. They also know if they're in soccer or if they're in organized sports, if someone gets a prize, that's the first prize. First place, second place, and third place. They're starting to understand that. Now, they don't really like not being first, which no one does, but this is part of learning ordering skills. Also, who has the most, who has the fewest, which one's thin, which one's the thinnest, which one's big, which one's the biggest. These are all ordering. Some really, really good ways to work with ordering with your kids is the 3 bears, because you have baby bear's chair, mama bear's chair, and papa bear's chair. And those chairs were too hard, too soft, and just right. The same thing with the beds. The porch was also, too hot, too cold, and just right. So there's a lot of children's books out there that can help you with this. Also, with measurement, we've talked about measurement in terms of numbers, but we haven't really talked about measurement in terms of weight, height, and temperature. Kids want to know how tall they are. They want to know how much they weigh. What's the number? Am I bigger or smaller than my friend? Is it hot or is it cold? What's the temperature? These are things that we can work on with the children. Also with time and sequence. With time, kids have a hard time with that, and we've talked about in class how we can put up a picture, the day in picture on the wall, where you start with breakfast, a picture of breakfast, you have a picture of maybe a small group time, then you have a picture of bathroom time, then you have a picture of going outside, and then you cover all of those up as the day goes along. Those are all really, really, really great ways of teaching children time. They also know who gets picked up first, who picks up last. That goes back to your ordering again, which can also be part of measurement or connected to measurement. They know who's picked up. If they're not picked up, if their mom or dad is late, they know something's wrong because he or she usually goes home before I do, or I'm gone before they do, and I'm still here. That's ways we can talk to them. Also, the different times of year: fall, spring, winter, summer. With the seasons. Now, I did not say those in order on purpose. We want the children to understand the order in which those go. And so if you had sequencing cards with the 4 seasons on there, then they could sequence those in any order they wanted to. They could start with summer, fall, winter, spring. Or you could start with winter, spring, summer, fall. You know what I mean. And then we move on to money. Money is part of this. Children enjoy money. They like coins, they like dollar bills, but they don't always understand what each of those actually mean or how much they're worth. They just like them. Now, they understand that quarters go into gumball machines. They know I need to have 1 quarter, 2 quarters, or 4 quarters to go in this. I need 4 of those. I need 4 quarters. But they don't understand actually the quantity of those. And they will learn about that later on. Now, also in this chapter, it talks about phonics versus whole language and balanced reading. Phonics is working with sounds, and whole language, teaching children working with sounds, sounding things out. With whole language, it's teaching children words and phrases in every area. It's an integrated type curriculum. It's not just focused on one thing. Now, the best way to teach children how to read or a balanced reading program is to have phonics and to have whole language together for them. And those kids usually come out with a better sense of reading or do better in reading, including both of those. That's all on chapters 14 and 15.